Hello, welcome to Let's Drone Out. It's episode number 346. I know because I looked it up especially. Today we are joined by Stephen,
Hello.
Jack's lovely little wife Tony down the bottom there, and there's no Jack. It's just us three tonight. Now, normally we'll kick off with the serious bit because normally we're quite light-hearted and it's all quite fun and games. But we have to announce some sad news today. One of our friends, big supporters of the show here, Wacky Wes, we've learned has passed away earlier this month, and we're all quite sad about it. I think most of us chatted to him at some point. Didn't know that anything was wrong, but he's no longer with us, unfortunately. So we wanted to say that, to pass on our respects there, say RIP Wes, and now we'll carry on with our normal sort of light-hearted, regular podcast. So, guys, what's been happening?
GoPro,
the GoPro Bones. I've actually prepared a screen grab. This is the real big news today, and it's big news because, like, if you're in the UK, you are
you
at a
can't get it.
disadvantage. Yeah. Well, this is what
If you're in
happened.
the entire world, you can't get it unless you live in a small portion of North America, in which case
Yeah.
you can.
So if you go on to the GoPro.com site and you can say, I'm in the UK, I want a Hero 10 Black, please.
There's a price and
A,
everything in pounds.
gives you the
Local
price,
currency.
a price like £100 above the regular GoPro 10.
Well, you get a lot for your money, don't you? They take out the
Yeah.
battery. They don't just
This
take
is-
out one screen. They take out two whole screens for you.
It's like having a Ferrari, isn't it? That, you know,
This
they
is it.
take away
If
stuff,
you have
make
the
it
racing
faster.
edition of a fast car,
Yeah.
where they've like it's 10 kilograms lighter because we took some stuff out, it costs like an extra 20
but
grand.
it's more money.
This is what the Bones is,
Yeah.
but we can't get
Take
it.
out the rear seats, charge more.
I don't know why. Yeah, Audio Geek saying it should be 100 less. Well, it should be even less than that because if you buy a regular,
Right.
just to put it in like comparison, a GoPro 10 Black is currently 379. But that includes this dodgy subscription thing, but you can
That
cancel
is a
that, but you can still get it
sting,
for like
That is a
£100 cheaper
sting.
than the stuff
And then-
taken out.
I heard it
and
was
then try to
$50.
take it out yourself.
£100? £100? That's a
What do you
lot.
say, Ten?
Yeah, you could buy that and then risk the £100 taking it apart yourself.
Yeah,
Really,
I mean,
yeah.
I was quite like Stephen. You were slightly unimpressed by it. I was like, you know what? You'd pay a bit extra. There's a bit more extra weight, but it's the lack of hassle. It's having some of the standard things there, like being able to remove the lens, and having it in a regular sort of GoPro box. Just looked a little bit more robust than the naked version. So I would be all for getting this type of camera. And this would weigh less than a Session would. It's a bit of a weird shape to fit on your quad, but I still
Right.
think it would work.
And that's what really miffs me. Like, if you go to places like Gep RC or Beta FPV, they did naked versions of these other GoPro cameras, and they followed a similar model, right? You paid a bit more than the regular camera because they bought one of the regular cameras, might have bought a damaged one or whatever, but they bought a regular camera and they stripped parts off it and they put it in a lightweight shell. And it was the same basic shape as a regular camera. It wasn't compact like a Session, but it was lighter, and you paid more for it. And what cheeses me off is that GoPro, the people who make these things, who have access to the PCBs, who have access to the lenses and the sensors, instead of producing something that is either cheaper because they can build straight out of their parts bin instead of having to buy a complete unit and throw bits away, they're charging more for it, and it's not a convenient shape. Like if I was thinking, oh, GoPro, yeah, let's get a camera and make it a nice shape for FPV. Let's sort of squish it up and make it as narrow as possible
It
so it
wouldn't
doesn't
be that
stick out the
shape,
side
would
of the
it?
quad. It would be the shape of a Session, and it ain't.
But here's the thing, yeah. So GoPro, pretty big company. They sell an awful lot of GoPros. Every man and their dog on the ski hill or mountain biking or whatever has got a GoPro. The reason I think it's a positive step is like we've got FPV, our little tiny niche hobby involving a certain type of quad we're flying around, and they notice that people are stripping these apart to put them on lightweight quads to save weight, and they're like, okay, we'll do something. Now, it would take an awful lot of resources and stuff to remake the session camera with the GoPro 10 internals and put it out there for what is essentially a very niche market. But doing this, they can like, okay, we can make a couple of changes to the body, we can take this, this and this out, and they can do it quite quickly. And that kind of fits, in my opinion, sort of the nicheness of FPV is like, okay, we'll bring this thing out, we'll give it US only because we don't know anything and we're idiots. And we'll see how it sells. That's kind of, I think it's like testing the water as opposed to anything. But it's nice, I think, that they've noticed us and that they're saying, okay, we'll support you in some way.
I'm not saying it's bad. It's just this is what people like GepRC and Beta FPV have been doing for years. And like GepRC and Beta FPV are companies that are probably just a couple of blokes in a garage somewhere in China. They're not huge. They're not an international presence like GoPro. And so I was just expecting GoPro to deliver more than what we'd seen from the prior naked GoPros, from, you know, naked GoPro 7s and 8s and 9s that you'd got from other vendors. It's not good either.
It's a step in the right direction. It's totally overpriced, though, isn't it? I mean, I wouldn't really want to take a GoPro apart and try my best. I've watched Tommy's video, and he was like, you know, I've took a couple apart and ruined them.
He said he's killed a couple, isn't he?
But
this is the equivalent price in the US, by the way, where it's $399. Somehow, when that gets converted to pounds, it goes up. And we've also got Brandon Beamed in the chat saying he's got 2 of them for review for his magazine. Going to put it for his paces. And I noticed we don't see an awful lot about the footage, and I guess that's because it's going to look exactly the same as a GoPro 10, because that's essentially what it is, just stripped down. Yeah. It's just the fact that the mounting's a bit different. But the if we've kind of finished about the bones, the other thing GoPro also released today, not today, but I noticed a video only yesterday, was then some sort of new GoPro player which had real steady.
Doesn't work in the UK.
Include. Doesn't work in the UK.
No, I've downloaded it and I press on the bit where it says smooth out your footage, even though it's smooth anyway, and it says not available in your country.
Great.
I got as far as downloading it, and it says add footage. I was like, oh, all my footage is in my video editor at the moment. I'll go somewhere else to do it.
Well, I had some on. I put it on mountain bike video, which is smooth anyway, because hyper smooth on a mountain bike on the chesty is really good. And I was like pressed over there on the right hand side, and it was like not available in your country. And I've done it on Instagram. I was like not available in the country, and they sent me links and stuff, and I was like, it's just it don't work. What are you talking about? So don't know.
I agree with Brandon. I had some flakiness with my Smo 4K, which is the Insta360 kind of equivalent camera. They did a naked version that was officially endorsed by Insta360, and that was probably 3 or 4 years back now. It feels like GoPro's taken a while to catch up. I'm sure the Smo 4K has weaknesses compared to a GoPro. They're not the same camera. They're good at different things. The Insta360 focused a lot on this kind of after-the-fact stabilization option. But I just feel like, you know, with a couple of years to respond to a smaller competitor in Insta360, like GoPro could have redesigned a PCB or done something.
Well, let's face it. This is good news though, because they know we're a growing community, etc. So it can only get better. This is their first attempt.
It can only get better. But then when you look back at the session, you know, people just wanted them to do a successor to that. So arguably, you know, they've been ignoring demand for smaller cube cams or lightweight cams altogether for quite a while. And this is a kind of tentative acknowledgement of the market. If we see a second iteration of this, then I think we can say they're serious. But right now, this could just be a flash in the pan.
I'm hoping it's not.
I think it's very much let's test it and see what happens. But to redesign the whole like case and PCB and stuff is extra investment, which they might not get back given the numbers of people that may or may not buy it. But see how this one goes, I guess, and if it works out particularly popular, we'll see something.
if you can get it for that price and you're a professional drone pilot and can use it in commercials and that, it's not a lot of money, but for us mere mortals who're not doing any of that, it's still, I think, overpriced. Especially when you're taking a lot out of it. And you've got to wire it up and solder it and stuff yourself.
And if you're
And
not
you
on
know
board
what
to
my
the whole
soldering's
subscription bandwagon,
Yeah, you got to do that as well.
Yep. It's
They'll
true.
be on
I was
the,
just
they'll be on eBay in a couple of days
we'll see.
for 500.
You never know. You might even see prices driven down if people are grabbing second-hand GoPro 10s and building similar naked versions as they did with the 8s and the 9s. There might be people like Gep RC or Beta FPV pushing the prices down by saying, well, you can buy the official Hero 10 black bones for $400, but we'll do one for $350 from some boards we found on eBay or whatever. So get some smashed up Hero 10s and make naked cameras out of them.
I mean, what's the other problem with Hero 10 is the codec formula, right? We were talking
this
about
is what we're talking about. This is a very exciting conversation, everybody. We were talking about codecs and the way they smell. This is H.264 versus H.265 for all you excited people. In a GoPro 10, if you're filming 4K above 30 frames a second, then it will switch over to the HEVC file, which is an H.265 codec, which is very, very efficient. I mean, they can put out really quite small files compared to H.264 in terms of the amount of space they take up. But if you want to play that back and your PC isn't particularly up to date, or you've got a laptop, then it might sort of give you like a bit of a slideshow. And if you try and process H.265 into an H.265 video, what Andy RC was on our chat today, and he said something like his $7,000 PC took like 16 hours to render out a 10-minute H.265 file.
Yeah, it's a bit desperate.
Crazy.
It's madness. Why would you do
the
that?
speed of H.264.
I don't know. There's not really a reason to render it out like that, because when you upload it to video, YouTube, YouTube
Kills it anyway.
converts it into their own stuff
said.
anyway and murders it.
Yeah. I tried VP8 and VP9 just to be super nerdy, because I think that's what Google used internally, because Google had this big, well, go back to the dawn of time, you may remember trying to play videos on PCs. Microsoft Windows back in the day was this uphill struggle of Windows didn't ship with any video codecs, right? You had to get all these freaking codec packs and install all sorts of dodgy rubbish so that you could play MPEG videos. And the reason for that was because there was a lot of licensing issues around video encoding, and you had to pay the MPEG consortium a licensing fee when you used it. And when this became, instead of people just converting videos on their PCs to Google converting videos in the cloud, the fact that there was a licensing fee and a bunch of patents that meant you had to pay someone when you used MPEG caused Google to throw all that out and invent an open source alternative, which is the VP8 and VP9 stuff. And so that I'd have thought would be what YouTube would really want you to use. But when I tried to encode in VP9, it was about the same speed as H.265, which is, like getting blood from a stone. Was not fun. Yeah. These days, I think H.264 is cool. Like, unless you want really small files because you're short of space, just whack up the bit rate to 100 megabit plus and keep it in H.264 and it's all good. I think even like 60 or 70 megabit gives you really, really good image. I'd have thought 4K.
There is not too much to choose from. When I had a look at the H.265 file versus H.264, they looked identical. One was just a smaller file size, but even for me I was using this 4-minute video I did because I was filming in 4K 120. It took an hour 20 to render that out versus like 10 minutes.
So let's be clear, there's not an image benefit of H.265 versus 264. There's no image benefit at all. There's a file size benefit. It's more complex to encode and it's more complex to play, and that means you can have less data on your disk. That's all. Look You can have one
Yes.
H.264 at like 1.2 gigs and an H.265 at like 900 megs, and they'll look the same. But you know, the H.264 one's bigger, so just F it. You know, use a bit more space, whatever. More time to do everything else.
Yeah, well, I've done a 264 18 minute video of me camping, and it was 2.5 hours to render on probably a 10-year-old laptop. What I'm using at the moment.
What do you guys use to render all your videos?
I
Final Cut
use
Pro.
Final Cut, because there's
Yeah.
usually an export
mine's
slider.
Adobe.
All right, because there's a few knobs and twiddly bits. I use like Handbrake and a bunch of other stuff.
I have to use Handbrake to do anything slow mo. So if I'm doing anything over 30 frames, my laptop goes, no, can't do it. So I have to do Handbrake first, render it in Handbrake, which takes half hour for literally a 10-second slow mo video, and then have to put it back on and then do it again. It's a nightmare.
That is a pain.
So there's usually a bunch of encoding profiles, and with H.264 and 265, you can basically say whether you care about file size or
quality,
speed.
But yeah,
No, quality.
you've
you can
got
have
general
the same
sliders
amount of
everywhere.
have the
quality.
same quality, but
Right,
faster.
yeah, and it takes
Okay.
longer to encode it, but you end up with a smaller file, or it's faster to encode it and you get a bigger file. And so you typically just want to say, screw it, and just go as fast as possible.
Yeah, who cares?
end up
Because
with a
you're
bigger file
uploading
because-
it to YouTube anyway, and then you're
Right.
going to delete your stuff
Yeah.
off your PC or whatever.
Yeah.
Come on then.
Hello.
Hello.
I'll wave at the audience. Famous. How's Doggo been? Been herring down more mountain bike trails?
Yeah, she's loving it. She was out the other day. She done 9 miles yesterday. She had a break today.
Wow.
She was literally.
Imagine the step count.
I
9
know
miles on
it'd
a
be
dog that
9
size.
million for her because she's smaller than a cat. Yeah, she's good.
It's weird. I was just trying that GoPro Play thing, and I had the same thing. So it's come up and it says real steady stabilization not available for this video. Click here to find more, and then it lists like the presets that you can use, and it says like this was filmed on a GoPro Hero 10. It says all shooting modes available. Yeah, I meet that, but it doesn't say anything about why this one doesn't work. That's weird. I thought this was like a free way of getting real steady, but it's like
I think
we
people
don't
have
like
said
you.
in the chat.
I thought
Tony,
they throw
get
real
a
steady.
VPN.
Oh, someone's mentioned the DJI Action 2, saying the DJI Action 2 weighs not much, but I think if you look at, we had Sync FPV who did a bit of a comparison on the two, like DJI Action 2 and GoPros, and while that Action 2 is lightweight, its image quality is not all that. It's got a bit more lens distortion. It's a bit softer, and it doesn't really do so well in the shadows.
I've still got
like-
2
sessions.
sessions yet.
Oh, don't let anyone know you got those, Tony.
I know. It'll be round
I had
here
the
in a
original
flash.
session. Nobody wants that. I didn't have the session 5.
I've got
That's about as
yeah,
good as a
session
Mobius,
5.
right?
It's all right. It just didn't have what's
Such
that wide
cool
mode called?
camera.
Can't remember what it's called
Super
now. That
view.
wide mode, yeah, which makes everything look fast.
Let's play.
Can't
We haven't
remember
had
what it's
that on
called.
there for a while.
Yeah,
We can't even remember what it is.
What did we used to play, guys? I don't remember. I remember now.
So anybody managed to fly? There was a couple of
Yes.
okay days, I think. Oh, good, Stephen. Didn't you have some issues trying out your
Always.
AS shenanigans
But I also
again?
went flying.
That's one better than we managed.
I've got a flying job coming up.
Chunky boy took to the air. This is the A test,
Hey.
where I doubled up the rear arms for a bit of extra chonk and a little less wobble. Oh, it's managed to knock a screw loose. Get that little boy in there.
Is that 6 or 7 inch props on there?
These are 7-inch props. These are
7.
HQ 3.5 by 3, which is an important detail because I thought I had a bit of clearance there, and I didn't. This prop deflected up enough. You probably can't see. It's terrible. Well, I've
It
got
looks
about
like That's quite a lot of
centimetres
deflection
clearance.
to hit that.
Yeah, about 2 centimeters deflection off these
Bloody
props,
hell.
I think, when I gave it full beans on 8S. So I'm looking at some more rigid props, and in fact, I've just decided to say screw it and get off this frame and put it on the AOS 7, which I should have effing done to start with, and I might reconsider the VTX situation, put it on something a little bit more, streamlined. Maybe
Is
follow
this the
Chris
dodgy-
Ross's idea of tying it to the
Tomahawk.
arms or something.
This is the dodgy one from Banggood, so you bought two and strapped them together.
Can't go wrong, mate. Can't go
He
wrong.
loves a-
Well,
loves
the
a
arms
strap
don't
on.
wobble. That was the main thing I was worried about, because I broke an arm, and I don't think there's that much difference between Catalyst Machine Works carbon fiber and Banggood carbon fiber. It's 2022.
It all comes
People have
out the
figured out
same
how to
place,
make carbon.
doesn't
Exactly. It's a sheet of carbon fabric with some epoxy on it. I think most people have figured out how to do it. I think I just managed to go really close to the ground, and I flicked a branch straight through the back of it. But yeah, I've decided I don't even really like the props in view of the camera, so I'm just going to transplant it onto the AOS 7 and say enough of this rubbish. I did think about going from 2807s onto 2810s, but I think that's just me being a flippant idiot, so I'm going to stick with the 2807s. But I do have, because they went on sale recently.
I haven't
Work
bought
on it.
any quad stuff for about 2 years.
That's because
Sev-
Stephen's
not
bought it all.
7-inch props,
I know, yeah.
7.5-inch props,
Woo.
just to be freaking weird. I
Are
thought,
they stiffer?
I don't know. Maybe I just like to cruise really fast. I'll give them a go. They're HQ. They're 3.7 pitch. They feel fairly rigid. I mean, it's a new design, so it's going to have whatever their latest current top polycarbonate is, and I'm going to give it a go. I've also got some nylon carbon fiber props coming as well. The ones that
Have you not
Cinelifters
tried
use.
dual blades on that? I must admit, tri blades are so much smoother than.
Funny you
dual.
should say that. The dual blades are downstairs. I ordered them as well.
Dual,
I've got
dual
7-inch.
blades are
by
harder to
4.5.
tune on a 7-inch and above.
Yeah.
Anything. But you do, if you get the tuning right, you get a longer.
Get a
flight
nice
times.
cruise speed.
Mm.
Yeah, get a bit of a bump in cruise speed. I thought that'd be a
slidey,
giggle.
though.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
out
not
of
so good around
interest,
the corners.
do you ever have to justify all your purchases to your other half, or do you just like, oh yeah, it all came for about 20 quid? That's the stock answer.
That's what he tells his wife. It was all 20 quid.
It's all 20 quid, big bundle.
Yeah.
He's not answering that one. He's staying quiet.
She's watching, obviously.
I think she's in earshot.
She's standing right there.
She's got plenty of hobbies of her own. Both have our own silly little hobbies. It's fine. Yeah, it wasn't too expensive anyway. I've had the AOS 5 for a while, AOS 7 for a while. I did have another impulse buy though, in the world of impulse buys, which hasn't arrived yet, but that's another thing.
You're quite an impulsive buyer, aren't you?
Can be.
I've noticed over the weeks we've had things like it was in stock, so or I just found this, so and it always ends up with you purchasing it and holding it up. It's like, dude, no wonder if things out of stock. You've bought it all.
I don't buy a lot of everything. I just like to try different bits and pieces. I mean, I don't crash, so most of the purchases I buy are just for brand new quads. Like, I haven't. The last motor I burnt out was an 1103, and that was like 2 years ago. I'm pretty. I don't crash stuff much. Fly a bunch, but I don't crash stuff much. I mostly fly over grass, so it
You're
lasts.
doing much better than we are for flying right now.
I've still got to.
I have
repair
felt like
my
I've had
aircraft.
the results of long COVID without actually ever having COVID. So for the last week and a half, I've been all like getting up and my muscles have ached. And I felt a bit dizzy,
That's
and I'm
just
super
the age
tired.
of the beast, Curry Cow.
That's just me being too old. But
Exactly,
yeah,
the
so I haven't
age
done
of the
anything.
beast, mate.
Walking the dogs, I was like, oh my god, dog, slow down. It's too hard. I'm all dizzy now. Never mind. We'll try. Hopefully, we'll recover soon and get flying because I had some stuff I wanted to get flying with and test. My ridiculous quad with all the free receivers on it, so I can do this receiver compared to that receiver. That's
That'd be
fun.
cool.
We should talk about, or you should talk about, a video you put out 2 days ago, was it?
Oh, what, the teaser trailer
Yeah.
for the sim, new sim?
Can you-
This
can-
is because I
can you
couldn't go
talk a
out and
bit
fly,
more?
and I've sat here. I've been in the flow, as we like to say sometimes in coding. If you get into a nice state where you're just like, oh, it's all coming together and tapping away nicely.
Cool.
Yeah, I was held up for about 4 months because I bought this asset off an asset store to do the weather effects, and it broke when I updated the engine version. And I'm like, this is broken. Can you fix it? And he's like, oh, what's broken? And it was like, it's on an API called Metal, which is the graphics API that iPhones and Macs use. And he said, oh, I don't have a Mac. I was like, well, you said it worked on a Mac. And we went back and forth like this for like 4 months before I get fed up with it. And I spent 2 weeks trying to learn shaders and figuring out how to fix it. And then I fixed it. And in the past week and a bit, I've like written all the stuff I needed to and got the new level finished. And yeah, so it's ready to launch on desktop, but I'm just converting all that back to the mobile edition to see if that's all going to work happily. And then I just need to optimize some
It looks
stuff.
awesome.
Yeah, it's not doing anything too different. It is a new level, and it's got, the reason I had to update the engine is because we've made holes in the terrain, which normally involves you flying underneath the terrain, but in this new version you can like create caves and that, which is what I've done. I thought flying through caves is fun, flying over bridges is fun.
Chasing
There's
cars.
still car chases to do, although they're a little bit more sedate. I had good fun trying to sort the air out of the cars. You see them flying off the cliffs. I had to slow the speed down so they could make that corner, so it was just like, whee, we're off. But yeah, hopefully shouldn't be long. Hopefully next couple of weeks if I can get the mobile stuff sorted. And,
I was loving the music on that track as well. The track, that you put.
yeah,
music.
every so often
Really good.
I do the old let's go and find some royalty-free music. As like, if you guys are on YouTube, then I think pretty much for all of us, because unless you're getting like 1 million views, I don't think it particularly hurts you putting licensed music on a track, because it will just say, oh, we can't earn money on this. But it's like even like a 10,000 view video might net you like 10-20 quid. Nothing special. But this was a pretty good royalty free library of music, and I did something kind of chill outy. And yeah, you just have to put that big
really good
attribution
tune.
thing with this many lines at the back, and you're good to use it. So it's out there. If you want to do royalty-free music, you can find it, and it's not too bad.
Is that going to work on Pants PCs? Because I think in the chat, Carolyn said, new sim stuff, sadly it won't be usable on my Weecast PC. Are you still keeping up with that?
I need to try it on my old and nasty laptop. It depends how much it can get knocked down. I mean, the problem is with that level, it's actually slightly smaller than the other levels, but it's very dense, because I thought we don't want like 5 trees to fly around. We want more of like, proper woods.
Forest.
And then we have to like do this round the stuff. All that detail can be knocked down, but I haven't checked it. Else, Carol is saying I have no graphics card.
I have no graphics card.
It's because she spent all her money on EDFs. That's why. I don't know how
You
software
can't render
rendering
it through ASCII.
is gonna
He hasn't
work.
got that far yet.
Yeah, not yet.
How
I
would
don't
that
know.
work without a graphics
I will check it.
card? Will it work?
Software rendering, basically.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
good old TTY.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry, I
graphics card is in not an
confused.
accelerator. Obviously, it needs some way of displaying VGA. Else, you're literally on a dumb terminal. with
ASCII art,
just
mate. ASCII art. FPV sim.
I don't know. I'll test it out before I do it. But I have insert a it's got an option, you can click on it and it will display a frame counter. And I thought this would at least help you out, because then you can like put the detail on low and try changing the resolution, and you can see what different frame rate gains you get or don't
You
get.
haven't got a lot of polys on screen here. I mean, you've got trees and you've got a bit more landscape detail, but we're not talking AAA game territory here, are we?
No,
It should be
but
okay
it's
on a low-end
it's
PC.
also not highly optimized like AAA stuff would be, because if you're in a AAA game and you're walking somewhere, if you move outside of that, you'll find it very sparse. They're very
Culling.
clever at only doing detail that you can see. Behind that, I think there's actually this YouTube channel called Behind the Scenes, where they use sort of hacks to go outside of the normal game environment and they see what's around there, and it's like literally like characters are down to about like 4 polys and stuff.
But
So
they're also they use level of detail bias. So when you think you're seeing something at full detail but far away, you're actually seeing just a box with no detail on it at all.
And
But-
I use that in the Sim. So the trees, as soon as you get a distance away, are a 2D billboard
Blob.
of a picture of a tree. And then there's 3 levels of detail as you get closer and closer.
Can the user adjust that? Now you've got a lot more trees and bits and bobs.
Not directly, but through the graphical levels of saying like ultra, high, low.
Oh, right. So that's how you
It changes the levels of when they swap over, basically. And the major thing it does as well is the shadow rendering completely changes. So if you're ultra detail, then shadows work a long way away. And when you get really low, it's like there's no shadow here, and then it's, oh, here it is. It's as I've walked closer to it, it's appeared. But yeah, whack the resolution down, whack the detail down. I'll do some benchmarking on. I use some VMs to test it on Linux and Windows. I've got an old Windows laptop to make sure it still runs, and then I've got my iPhone. I
and
need
I
to
won't
check
have
out.
to be the sole grumpy voice complaining that it doesn't work on Linux and filing bug reports like I was.
Yeah, although I'm removing the Linux 32 version, sadly, because
That's
the
fine.
new version of the
Linux
engine
has
doesn't
removed the
support it.
32. I don't think you can get Ubuntu in 32-bit anymore. They just
Sure, you
dropped
can
it.
still download it somewhere, older versions.
You can run
because
Debian, but yeah, they're just
people
Red Hat's
still manage to
dropping
run it.
non-UEFI. Everyone's just killing support for old systems right now, but they are stupid old. Like there are people who can drink the fucking older than younger than these systems. Like we're talking systems from 1999 or something that people still want to use.
It's classic stuff.
That is old in tech, to be fair.
Yeah.
But
And
not
people complain that they bought like
not in
some
in real
FPV
life.
thing they can't use, but PC users have it easy. 20 years, you can probably expect to stop getting updates after 20 years, I'd have thought.
Can we get it on PlayStation yet, Carrie Kitten? PlayStation 5?
No,
Okay.
I thought about doing an Xbox version because I can create a
Don't do
Windows version that
Xbox.
will run on it.
I suppose it's
Only
easier
one
to
of
do it
those
on that,
allows
yeah.
you to use custom joysticks, right? One of them you can plug OpenTX into, but not the other. PlayStation or Xbox.
I think I can't remember which one does it.
Not
Because
I
it's
think
not worth playing on the
somebody was-
gamepad.
Yeah, gamepads still aren't very nice to play on, and I still get
Not-
complaints
not
from
for
people that
flying.
like I can't connect my radio to my iPhone. It's like, nope, that's Apple. Blame Apple for that one. They won't let me.
Yeah. Apple were
Doesn't work.
in pockets of GoPro, aren't they, really? It sounds like.
Well,
Especially
they
what
both seem to have a
Stephen-
similar sort of like.
Well,
We're not
Stephen
doing
was
it for
saying
you.
like the new Apple Mac will render the GoPro stuff easily. Was it you, Stephen? In the
I think
chat?
that was.
Yeah,
I
thought
was
that
talking about
probably
that,
Curry because I
Yeah,
don't use
because-
Macs on principle.
Apple were pushing the HEVC format themselves when everybody else was
Yeah,
pushing something else because that was one of the ones they were backing. I don't know.
it was their lifeblood. Also, video.
Yeah,
Well,
video
both
editors with
American
tons
companies,
of
so
money.
Yeah, so
They're
if you
gonna
go
do
into
it,
Final
aren't
Cut Pro X and you're editing H.265, it works brilliantly. It's like no problem, as opposed to like some of the Windows versions. But yeah, it's
why
still
can't the whole world just use a USB-C cable, like literally get rid of everything else, and just let's stick to one thing instead of having all these different.
Well, you know how you make money? You
Well, I
teach
know,
consumers to be rabidly religious about something.
but
You
we
divide
need
them into
to.
camps and make them fight against each other,
We need to
and
grow
then
as a
increase the
as a
price of your product.
world, a community, and like literally help each other and stop fighting each other. It's just fucking no.
Kumbaya, motherfucker.
There does seem to
Not
be
anymore.
some tribal stuff. I notice this all the time
Very tribal.
when people talk about like Express LRS and Crossfire. It's like you're not allowed to have both or think both are good.
Yeah, right.
It's like you have to be in one camp or the other. It's like it's fine. We got some Crossfire gear here. We got some Tracer gear. We got some ERS. We got some Free Sky.
Stephen's got all
There's even got some
three.
Spectrum stuff. Oh, you'll be kicked out of the group for that one.
Naughty Tracer.
It is. It reminds me of the
Peace
Spectrum
and love
versus
indeed.
Commodore 64 stuff, which is far too old for most people to understand or remember. But it's the same old thing.
Although you might think I'm a profligate idiot, I did stop using Tracer because it just cost too effing much. Like it's a bit pricey.
It is. I mean, that's the problem.
Speaking of stupid value, I found the new king of ERS value. In the UK, there is a jumper Axion RX, which someone's flogging for £7.65.
£7.
£7.65.
And this is a regular. Have you got
But
a
it's
screenshot?
coming
Is
into
this
summer now. I don't need a jumper anymore. I need t-shirts.
nice?
Dum.
Regular sort of T-style antenna.
Yeah, apparently it's got the IPEX antenna, which is small and awkward. That's the bad thing. I'm just trying to search for it now because I found it the other day. I was going to buy it. Where are we? Hobby RC. Here we are. I think it's Hobby RC. It's the Jumper RX something. Where you at? Can't find the bleeding thing now. But yeah, it's the Aeon. Oh my! How are you supposed to even pronounce this on an audio podcast? AION. They evidently don't sell these because you can't bloody pronounce it, which isn't helping anyone find their product. But yeah, it was £7.65. I thought that was quite impressive.
That's not bad. That is.
Either.
That's the sort of thing where you're like, oh, I need, especially if you're like 5 or 6. If you compare that, what's a Crossfire receiver cost these days?
30 quid? I think
30
the
odd
Tracer
quid?
ones were about 30.
Yeah.
Crossfire's
I mean, that's the thing. It doesn't quite compare as an experience. This is why I keep telling people. It's like
Pardon me.
if you're not happy with like learning some stuff and pressing some buttons and reading some documentations.
Well, you're not going to get off the ground with Crossfire
GUIs.
either.
Well, I mean, the Crossfires, when it works, it's just like you plug it in, it says, we want me to update you, yes please, and off you go. And it should just be that. As opposed to, I'll just try this.
This is why I haven't
Discord group
changed.
quickly.
I'm just on Crossfire and that's it, and I can't be bothered to change. Don't care.
Wait, well, you haven't bought anything for ages, but if you had to buy something new,
I would just buy
would you be
another
tempted?
Crossfire.
Would you just buy another Crossfire?
Nah,
That's the
just
going
buy
rate
another
for a Crossfire.
Just can't be bothered. It's just like literally stick to one thing.
Here we are. Crossfire Nano Pro. Is that what most people are buying? Or as a Nano Special Edition? And they're 27 or 30 quid, depending. £27.90 or £30.90
See, that's
versus
all right.
£7.65.
Yeah, but if you've invested in something, it's best to just stay with it. If in my opinion,
dude, it's that's what people call the sunk cost fallacy. That assuming that you're going to save money by not spending money, but if you can buy a radio transmitter for 20 quid and a new receiver for 7 quid,
yeah, I agree.
The alternative is to spend.
It's just 4 letters, but arranged in a particular way.
Yeah, but if you're dyslexic, it's
throw up this link.
shit.
Throw up this link as well, Carrie.
I completely get where Tony's coming from, because if you've got Crossfire and you're not getting like new quads every month, and you might just have to buy like 1 or 2 a year, then maybe you will just stick with what you've got, because
Stay with
otherwise
it,
you
yeah,
might be like, oh, I
exactly.
have to take 2 modules with me because I'm flying 2 quads here
Yeah,
and
I
stuff.
can't be bothered with all that.
Well, I take 2 bottles into the shower.
All right. Hang on.
2 beer cans into the shower.
Did you not log in or
Right.
something, Stephen? Is this why you can't share it yourself?
No, I'm just being useless. That's all.
User error. This is the
Brain
cheapo
fart.
module. That is a very cheap module. Has that got a little LED as well, or OLED, whatever it
It's
is?
got a
What
little OLED on it. It looks like it might.
I mean,
it's
it
got
looks
a
good and
joystick
it
on
is
too.
cheap and it does work and it's good. So it might be investing in that. But it means like literally ripping all my quads apart, putting all this back in to save me a couple of quid on my future quads. Can't be bothered. And what was that really, really good? We all jumped over to it a couple of years ago and it was actually turned out to be pants.
I don't know. Give us a clue.
Let's play.
Marmite.
Rhymes with sounds like.
I don't even know.
Is
I can't even
this, is this a
remember.
radio system?
A couple of people bought it because they're really cheap receivers, but it was just really pants. It only went down there and then literally went 10 meters and then
Fly
fell out of the sky. No,
Fry Sky.
say some more.
FR Sky. Ghost. Tracer.
No.
Sounds like an SPI thing.
God, what was it? R9. Clive said it in the chat. Well done.
R9.
R9.
well.
So everyone invested in that because it was cheap and better and Crossfire, and that just that was just a load of crap.
Well, the good news is you can convert R9 over to ELRS instead now.
Fair.
Albeit on 900, but yeah.
Yeah, well, then it becomes the same as Crossfire.
It just depends how often
So,
you're trashing
even
your
zero
antennas
said.
and rebuilding stuff, right? If you're constantly smashing quads up and replacing receivers, and there's been a few people out there recently, unfortunately, who have had a not great experience with Crossfire because there was an update that bricked a bunch of modules, and there was another update that screwed up people's firmware and stopped it binding. And
No, that's bad.
Crossfire has not had a smooth path recently.
Don't ever update. We've talked about this before.
Yeah,
Don't update
yeah.
a quad if
Update.
it flies nice. Don't update anything if it works. Don't
TBS,
update
they'll
it.
be on that sofa of theirs and they'll be saying, just use the new software. It'll tickle
No,
you.
people
It'll make
update
you
their
happy."
wives and girlfriends, and it just never works out. Just don't ever update. Keep the one you've got. It works. It's good.
You do occasionally fall into problems, like
Wise words,
Where-
Tony.
where I occasionally test out different radios
Capital
and
Tony.
things and different quads. I ended up once taking 3 quads with me to the field and realised they were on 3 different radios.
Oh, see, that would just do my head in. I'd be like,
That was a bit bad.
Have you ever noticed that round the
Why,
back
yeah.
of these modules, there's these little clippy slidey things, and you can actually take the module off and just like put a couple in your bag?
Yeah, but
And
this
swap.
was more about like all the model information and stuff was on there. All the model was there, and it's like, oh, I can't move that one to that one because that one's already full. I don't know if you noticed, but despite these radios being like quite
Full.
like whizzy in that, the old Tyrannus only had like a 60 model memory, and then it would run out and start complaining that it was out of memory all the time.
I just have one model for all of the ELRS stuff.
What if you got different stuff on it? I do like that about Express LRS that I can, because I don't use model matching. I was just like, oh, this is much the same as that quad. We'll just fly with that one. But then I have to remember which quad's which in case there's anything specific.
Just
I like the
how many
tech.
switches. I was starting to count how many switches I have on my radio, and like I don't have more switches than channels, so I just map all of the switches.
it's great because the tech moves so fast, but once you've got over 30 quads, you really can't be asked to move to another thing.
I used to do that on FR
but you wouldn't,
Sky
would you?
because you'd
You
have
wouldn't-
some that are on D8, some are on D16,
Yeah,
some
well,
D16 with LBT, some D16 with the American one, and
Yeah.
so I did have a model for each different bloody
Bar
quad.
racing quads now,
It
if I
was
went back to
insane.
them now, I'd be like, I don't even know how to arm these. They're all on God knows what.
Yeah.
It'd be a nightmare. So, yeah, just, I don't know.
That's it. You know, much as I love Express LRS, I'm not gonna take all the quads and planes apart and replace everything. I just have to cope with the fact that I might have to use different radios or different modules sometimes.
I'm the same.
I didn't upgrade everything, but when I did the 1.x to 2.x upgrade for Express LRS, I think I did upgrade 20 models.
So
I didn't upgrade all of them, but most of them.
I ain't got time for that stuff.
That's too much work.
Exactly.
Well, not when all your models are on FR Sky and they keep falling out the air when you go behind a tree. You don't. You've got plenty of time for that.
They never did that. FR Sky was brilliant.
Free Sky was
never
fine most
does
of the
that.
time.
Really good.
Never does that.
Not for me.
So I have boards with SPI receivers on them.
Oh,
and
SPI
they will
receivers
fly behind a tree and they will fall out of the sky. And so they
SPI
all got
receivers are shit, though. I think we all know that. If
which is why they all got those little EP2s, and now they just keep on going.
But if you had something like XM Pluses, they were pretty good.
Yeah,
they could go a decent distance. They could go fairly low.
Yeah, with XM Pluses, what you had to worry about was flying too close to yourself, and then you'd swamp yourself, and it would fall out.
Yeah, that would happen quite often.
This is like inches rather than you could still do a circle. Just don't try and take your own nose off. That might create a failsafe.
Anyway, for better or worse, I was just like, I'm done with this. I want proper telemetry on everything. So I just did a bulk upgrade. I can't say I regret it. I was flying a hideous mix of XM Plus, XM, and a bunch of jumper, FR Sky stuff, SPI, and some of it had telemetry, some didn't, and the range was all over the shop and entirely unpredictable.
This is the problem with this hobby. It's so cutting edge. It literally changes quicker than mobile phones. You get the S21, the S22. It's got better camera. It can zoom in and all that. This literally changes in a month. In a month, you can have something better.
That's the funny thing, isn't it? Going back to older quads, like the one I've put the free receivers on to test, I hadn't flown for a long time. And I had a look at it, and it was on Betaflight 3.1 something. And it had a VTX on it that predated smart audio or anything else. So it's like, what channel's this on? R1. Yeah, that'd be okay. We'll be able to fly that. And then it's just upgrade the board and see what happens. I think that's the only reason I'd be changing receivers, is if I I must fly that quad that I flew 7 years ago. Because, I don't know, I'm feeling reminiscent about it. And I can't find the radio that does that, so I just put a new receiver in it or something like that. That would be about it. But then it's probably
luckily
this is
my
on
radio
F3,
will fly all my near on 40 quads. Some won't go very far. Some will.
I've made sure to still stay with an MPM, just in case.
I do like the fact that the tech goes fast and it changes and it's,
yeah, but you don't have to upgrade, like you're saying, Tony. Nothing's forcing you. It's just there if you feel like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know it's good to test because if my quad flew crap and there's an upgrade, you could make it fly better. It's maybe worth upgrading, but
yeah,
they fly right.
I also, as I've said before, I fly in a park under my Article 16 whatever. In a fairly noisy area. I don't get great VTX performance, and I don't get the type of range that you'd expect if you were flying a field and a wing in an empty field at altitude. I get XM Plus dropouts at a sort of 150 meter range from where I'm standing.
That's really bad.
It will just go boop and fall out the sky. So
there was a couple of them I remember being really pants. I can't remember what they were
called. The XSR was worse than the XM Plus, I found.
Yeah.
What were the ones with the big, the antenna and then a big plastic bit on the end? X8? They were quite good. They went quite far.
Audio gets talked about the RSS XR, and that I had problems with those where I think it's because it's telemetry, and that telemetry would screw it up. But some of the stuff I've got there, like the Bixley, you could just see it's got the L9R on it, which was good for about 5-6 kilometers. And then further along, I've got in an older wing, I've got what's called the DX2 DX2 something X2 Plus, which is an X no, not an X, a D8 based long range receiver, and that would get like over 3.5 kilometers quite happily because it had nice big old antennas that you could like space out in places. So
yeah, but you get an easier time on a wing because you're at altitude.
Oh, you get a
Ends up
far
line
easier
of
time on
sight.
a wing. But yeah, I started flying quads on the D4Rs, those little square things,
D4R2.
which D4R2, which could you could do. I think the major upgrade was like, oh, you can make it do PPM now. Just one wire.
I think D4R2s, they're good.
It seemed all right.
Yeah, I raced on them back in the
I'm
day.
sure loads of people did back in the day.
I've also had fairly crummy experience compared to like Tracer and ELRS with what people seem to really love, which is the DJI remote controller, or the large baked potato controller, as I call it, which I really regret buying, and I think it's just gathering dust now. I've got to try and flog this thing before it gets too old.
I'm giving one of mine
just
away.
Awful. Yeah, it drops out before the video link does. Like, come on, DJI, how did you manage to do that one? It's not good.
I thought people quite liked those.
It feels nice, but it costs like twice as much as a really good radio, and it doesn't have all the features of a really good radio.
Do you guys swap radios? Like, literally, I've had my Tyrannus forever, and if someone said, well, people have said, fly this, and they've given me this titchy thing, and I'm like, I can't fly this, it's horrible. And then someone gives you something else, and it's that big, and I literally love the Tyrannus because, like, it's just feels the same every time. Like, oh, I know where I am with this.
I quite like the Tyrannus still, but
does this go back to what you were saying about partners?
Yes, this feels good. This feels right.
I think the Tyrannus...
if someone, I don't know, it just if you gave me that, I'll be like, oh, it feels weird. It feels different. I just don't know.
So that's where I started, which is the deviation, like the last great deviation radio by Jumper, before they started making decent OpenTX radios.
How many controllers have you got?
4.
See, do you think you fly differently with every single one? A little bit, yeah.
I think it's nice to have that mix because, like, I started with the old 9X, and then I upgraded to Tyrannus.
See, and then you got a PlayStation controller.
Yeah, that was a bit bobbins, I have to say, but it's quite fun. Do you fly better with that
or worse?
I really like flying on the PC with this. It's just comfortable. There's the USB port for connecting to the simulator and charging is really convenient. It's quite nice for kind of pick up and play.
With that outside in the real world.
if I'm trying to fly smooth, I fly worse. If I'm trying to fly like really aggressively, it's got much less. Yeah, it's much easier to like go to maximum throw because I've got the sticks rammed down. I can go from one side of the gimbal to the other really easily, but I can't be precise. So
it seems to me that it depends what you're comfy on. Like, I like the Tyrannus, but it feels to me like a radio I fly fixed wing on. So as soon as I got the old X-Lite, I really like the form factor, although I had to change the sticks for it to be good. So the most favoured radio at the moment is the Zorro, because I like the factor, and the gimbals are really nice on it, I think. But it seems to have less like switches than you would want if you were flying like fixed wing and you wanted flaps and, you know, pan tilt on sliders and things. So it's sometimes I think that the bigger radios, the bigger chunkier things. And I don't think I fly as well because there's more of a stretch on your thumbs, I think, on the Tyrannus than one of these smaller controllers where you can really move around it a bit more. So I think I fly better on a smaller controller.
I agree with that, but once you're used to something, like for me, I'm just like, I've got 40 quads, but I know they all fly different, but I know where they are in that form factor on one thing. You know, if you gave me the same quad on a different controller, I'd be like, this is weird. Just don't like it. But that's me. That's just me.
But a lot of people seem to think that this is kind of where it's at. You've got TX16S, right?
So another controller you've got to
the
get
shiny
used
one.
to. It must like be
That is a
weird.
nice.
Can you
it's hard
fly
to
the
get
same
used to.
drone on that? Say if you
It's
took
like
that little
saying,
one.
when you play PlayStation 4 and you had your PlayStation 3 controller, you're just like, oh, what do I do? It's slightly different shape. Oh my word, my brain.
To be fair, that's a crap example because PlayStation 3 had the worst shoulder buttons in the world because they were concave and you had to fit other things on them to make them better.
But like, it's just different. Like, it's not better or worse. And sometimes that is really precise and it's really smooth.
I like the same. I like going and picking up the same thing every time and knowing what it's going to do. Like my friends change mountain bikes. Like I've had my mountain bike for 3 years, and a couple of them have changed mountain bikes, and they're like, "Oh, it's a whole different ball game." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm going down the same trail faster than you. You've changed your bike, and now you've got 6 months to get used to changing your bike."
Tone, I'm also flying like 7 inches and like 2.5-inch micros. So even if I had the same radio, it's still going to feel completely different.
Yeah, but you know the feel of it and the throws and stuff like that, and how far you can push your thumb.
Yeah,
maybe it's just me. I don't know.
I've literally changed radio, and it's only like a couple of batteries, and then you're back to.
Yeah.
It's like you've got sets of muscle memory, and you're like, I'm on this radio, it feels like this. Now I'm on this radio, it feels like this. It's a bit like going from straight to like fixed wing to quad.
Remember the old days when PlayStation had these really stylized controllers, and Xbox had like this huge, giant cow of a controller. It was just like that. You just like, oh, that's awkward, and then a couple of levels later, you're like, oh yeah, I got this.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I don't know. I just like it how I like it.
That's fine, man. And the point you were making was, I think actually when you have a smaller radio like a gamepad or something, it feels like you've got higher rates because all of a sudden a little movement when you've got the sticks shorter and you just tend to use like the ends of the sticks are closer to the radio. You're holding the radio much tighter, so when you move, you tend to move much closer to the limits of the gimbal. On a big radio, you tend to kind of move the ends of the sticks just a little bit, and you don't often slam to the sides.
I never reach the end of the gimbals, really. And the thing is, with me, sitting down, I always sit down to fly, and it just feels good every time I sit down, and I'm like, okay, I know this.
So what we want to do next time we have a meet up, we want to make Tony stand up and give him a really weird radio and say, fly this.
I can fly standing up as long as I'm leaning against someone, normally Jack or Frank.
Have that person move mid-flight.
But don't move mid-flight because it will go
Has anyone
bad.
heard about any, speaking of radios, new beta FPV stuff, maybe with a screen?
They mentioned it to me, but I thought I saw someone mention it. They were sort of talking about their
hello, Bruce.
Their sort of light radio with some sort of screen thing. Did I see a render somewhere or a rumor?
It appeared, in a post a while back. It looked like beta FPV might be getting into the OpenTX game, maybe even EdgeTX with a.
They were kind of in it before, in the worst way possible, where they forked their own version of the configurator. And it was a bit of a mess. I think we.
I spend a whole bunch of time in my day job telling people, like, stop forking software and trying to like put your own features in. Just go and talk to the people that run the project and put your features in there. And people are like, oh, why would we do that? And Beta FPV are the prime example of this. Like, this other team is really great at running the software project. Like, do not assume that just because you made the hardware, you're automatically better than them at running the software. It's not the case.
Indeed.
No, they mentioned it. I do have their new flat antenna, which is one of my test subjects, which I haven't been able to go out and fly again yet. But no, I haven't heard of that one. Because that's what we need. We need another radio.
Pardon?
I said that's what we need. We need yet another radio that does.
Definitely another one. I don't want
asymptotic to perfection. Slowly approaching, but never reaching perfection.
It might
There
one
is that.
day.
Yeah, but yeah, there's nothing else new coming out, is there? All of the new stuff right now is like it's Express LRS based, as what it's been. It's like what's happening with DJI? What are they going to do with their next release? Are they gonna stop all the the new VTXs from working with the new goggles or whatever?
They're going to come around your house and they're going to smash all of your FPV equipment. That's what DJI. They're just going to take all the money from the next release, hire some goons. They come around and break your air unit. That's what they're going to do.
Probably you probably agree to it in the terms and conditions that you didn't read.
Yeah.
What?
Well, that no one reads because it's 2 pages, 3 pages long. That's the next problem.
Oh, did we talk about this last time? But this project to hack the air unit, and people have figured that you can just draw on the screen and do your own overlays and stuff. I think we mentioned that briefly, didn't we?
Well, we talked about like the main
Someone
goggles being
Donkey
hacked and
Kong
people
on
running
it or something.
Doom on it, but I hadn't heard about
yeah.
the air unit.
Oh right, so they've actually hacked it so it does the full OSD now, like so it does Betaflight OSD.
Oh, I thought that was just part of the goggle hack. Was that something different?
So there's one project called Margarine with an E for some reason, named after the Simpsons song. And that routes the goggles. And then there's another one which adds this basically MSP DisplayPort like HD0 has.
Ah.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who say they're not making any more.
What? So if I've got the V1s and I want to buy a new quad and put something on it, I won't be able to run. I won't be able to buy anything to run them goggles.
Some people might suggest that you put a couple of Vistas in a drawer. Some people might
suggest that the price of Vistas might rise soon.
See,
yeah,
that's just this is.
The same people might suggest that Hobby RC are currently flogging them for 86 quid, and that's quite a good deal. Maybe grab one.
That's not a good thing for the community.
No, it's not. But DJI has never been a good thing for the community.
Well, I know
it's been a tolerable thing for end
it has
users.
Because it took me out of flying through fuzz into joy, and give me another lease of life for a couple of years and enjoy it. But
the orgasmic blades of grass, as
but if I can't buy anything for my, they're literally just going to be rendered useless. They're going to be thrown away.
They're not going to stop you flying. It's like we're saying, Tony.
Might.
Well, not if you don't fucking update them. They won't. What did you say earlier?
DJI here. Buy new stuff from us.
Don't update a fucking thing.
Yeah, don't update. But what if I lose all my quads with them bits in, and I want to buy new ones, and there's none for sale?
You have to buy new goggles.
Exactly. That's bullshit. That's what I hate about that. This is the tech shit that I hate when it does that.
Yeah,
I was all for it because I loved it, and the blades of grass were lovely. But if you can't buy an old school receiver transmitter, well,
what I think we should do is club together and buy Tony a piece of turf, and then he can
buy
look
him
at
an
the
old
blades of
Dragon
grass.
Lake module as a symbolic gesture.
Just
Well,
what
that's
that winds me up. That's like literally going backwards. Just keep selling them. Why would you not sell them? At least for 10 years.
I think DJI's found out that if they just keep selling those, then why would people buy the new goggles? Let's just stop doing that.
What we don't have is clarity on whether the new system is going to be compatible or not compatible with the current system, right? What we have in place of facts
is going to
are
force
paranoia.
me to upgrade the goggles.
What we have right now in place of facts, Tony, is paranoia. And no one knows whether the new air unit is going to be backwards compatible or not. Whether it might be the case you buy a new air unit and you can run it in legacy crappy mode or new super shiny high res mode.
Anything from China ever again, ever.
Until the next time.
Pretty much everything. Mind you, they're in lockdown, so it's not producing fuck all right now. Excuse my French.
Yeah, so we don't have facts. We should emphasise that,
I
right?
know,
Everyone
I
is
know,
worrying about the worst case scenario. They could
The
release new
lack of
goggles
facts
and new
is
air
not
units.
stopping anybody else from
and have
talking
them all
about
being
it, so I think we
compatible.
should.
Yeah, you're
People,
right.
people love
We've
to
heard it from a
demonise
credible
DJI,
source.
but in a certain way, if you demonise a company, you kind of tell them how you expect them to behave. So maybe just automatically try and assume that a new air unit is going to
But
be
the-
compatible with your
but-
V1 goggles, and assume that the new goggles are going to work with the old air
Me
units.
being an
and
early
complain
adopter of the
if they don't.
V1 goggles gave them money to make the V3, so they should literally be making stuff what works for me. Surely, this is how it works, you bastards.
Yeah, and maybe we all end up with 2 sets of goggles. But
See, that'd be
Whatever.
2 sets of goggles, 7
sets of goggles,
transmitters,
4 radios.
29 quads. I'll just fuck. No.
12
That's
will
like
bring out a new
playing
backpack
golf.
that looks like a skip.
you're going to
on
join
wheels,
Jack,
you
aren't
push it
you?
along.
You'll be on
Playing golf,
eBay
you need-
searching for old stock.
Yeah. You need a putter, a fucking chipper. Oh, fuck that. Just hit it with one bloody thing.
You need a piece of string, a control line, run a bit of wire
I'm
along
going to
it.
go, but if DJI don't make the V3 goggles compatible with the V1 stuff, or even the V1
Petition,
goggles with the new
march on
V3
China.
stuff, I will wear sandals and white socks to every event I ever go to next year. This year.
Well, that's
Tony,
quite a
you're
threat.
gonna get
if
so
you're
much
listening,
action.
DJI, watch
That'd
out.
be incredible.
That's it. I'm buying some sandals now.
On that note,
Well-
for the people excited to see Tony in his socks and sandals, we'll call it there on an hour. A big thanks once again to all our patrons that are scrolling across the screen there, including our late friend Wes, who's a big supporter of the show. If you liked this and you're thinking, what can I do to help these guys more, you can become a patron, and it helps us pay someone to actually edit this into a podcast. Now, if you've actually listened to the podcast, you probably won't recognise it because it's
And
done
pay
in
for a
such a
website.
way that it sounds much better than us generally talking. But until that time, we're going to go now. We've been here with Stephen.
Thank you, and good night.
We've been here with Tony.
Bonnie the douche.
Jack has not been here, but he should hopefully be back next week. And I've been Curry Kitten. Good night, all. And look, we've round perfectly with the last of our patrons spinning on by. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Goodbye.